everyone, it's Grace here. Today I want to talk about different ways to teach and learn piano, and specifically by rote. So we have a special guest today. Her name is Sydney from Smart Game Piano. Hi Sydney. So Sydney, can you tell us a bit about what you do?
So I am Sydney from Smart Game Piano. I help people strengthen themselves mentally and musically by teaching them video game music on the piano, and specifically video game music through videos online.
That's great. And how did you get started?
So I'm going to include a story in this if that's okay. I think today we are going through a bit of like a crisis because we're kind of going through an information revolution right now, kind of like the Industrial Revolution, but we're going through like basically the internet bombarding you with information. So sometimes it's in a good direction, sometimes it's in a bad direction. We have stuff like Amazon, Uber, Facebook, but there's like this sense of lack of interconnectedness with all this interconnectedness. And so Smart Game Piano exists because of this. And so right when I was like out of NYU, I graduated my graduate degree in 2015. I met some amazing people online that we all had like the same idea. We all wanted to teach video game music. We all wanted to create this idea of togetherness and interconnectedness through the years of the internet. We've been doing this for 3 years. We've been through a lot of stuff. We had to work through depression, people leaving. I had a death I had to work through, still working through, server breakdowns, but we didn't quit. We're still working on it. And so what we do is we don't ask people, or we don't tell people that they're going to become concert pianists, but we tell them to join us so they can fight for themselves, essentially. We started because we see a lot of these people being bombarded with information, and this can be a way to survive the internet age is to actually by learning piano. And we use technology, obviously. We use the internet, we use videos and all that stuff. But ironically, it's like using the technology is to basically get started with that interconnectedness and the motivation. And I feel like that's such a long answer, but basically we got started because we wanted to like make sure we survive the internet crisis era, if that makes sense.
I noticed that you guys normally teach by rote. Do you notice a difference in the learning pace or style of people who learn by rote versus people who learn by sight or by ear?
Well, if you want to learn how to play piano, you have to play piano. I know that sounds really stupid, but that's really all it is. I notice people tend to overplan and underdo. So that type of lesson, I feel, in my experience, works well with the traditional way. You go down to a traditional classically trained instructor, like, we're going to learn Bach, and then we're going to learn Beethoven and Brahms, cover all the 3 Bs, and then eventually we'll move on to Scriabin and Debussy and all that stuff, which is fine and all, but that's not the goal that I'm trying to do. And so teaching by rote, teaching the way we teach, is basically gonna be the way that gets people to achieve the goal we want them to have, which is to relax and have fun and basically take care of themselves. And I've noticed that teaching by rote essentially is a way to make sure people don't quit right away because they're doing before they're hearing and before they're seeing, and because you play piano to actually do it. And so we've noticed that people have more immediate results, that they want to use it right away. It provides user with feedback, not from me obviously because I'm a video away, but for themselves. They're like, okay, I'm actually doing this, because they don't have that teacher next to them. They can see that on the video and see themselves do it. They can just copy the video. So immediate results. And it answers the question that, can I do it? And it's like, yeah, you just proved to yourself that you can do it. And so it's basically more encouraging for people, especially beginner people.
Mm-hmm. So it's much faster to get started when you're learning by rote. And I remember, yes, like when I started learning piano, I learned one piece by rote. It was chopsticks. And it was the advanced version though. It had like the 4 octaves and like 2 hands, and
golly.
I felt like I was the coolest kid on the block.
You probably were.
Well, no one else plays that chopsticks. Everyone does the 2-finger one, right?
See? Exactly.
Yeah. But That is very cool. So, did you learn by rote as well, or did you start the sight and the ear way?
I had the traditional classic music way, which at the time served its purpose just fine. I've noticed that it doesn't work for everybody. I was part of a studio that had, a bunch of kids, and I am the only one that kept up music out of all of it. So that's really discouraging. And so that's what Smart Game Piano is trying to counteract, like have a huge studio and then have everybody stick with it and have people not quit because it's boring or they're not motivated, and because boring teachers and not motivating their students is like the enemy of people not learning piano.
And I love the idea of having more of an open and diverse studio where you can accommodate different types of learners. And so when you're learning by rote, do you have any advice for people who want to combine that with sight or by ear? Or, if someone's teaching in their studio by sight and ear already, how can they incorporate more rote learning in their studio?
Well, I have a bunch of students on Smart Game Piano that say that they don't use exclusively just Smart Game Piano, and that's totally fine. I'm totally okay with that. They use Smart Game Piano, but they're also using maybe sheet music, not because they can necessarily read the sheet music, but they compare the sheet music with the videos they find online. So I have sheet music for all of my lessons too. So if they do want to combine that, it might be a weird new way of learning to read sheet music that I still haven't fully experimented with. They can do that. And that's something I've noticed. I had a couple of students be like, yeah, I'm either looking at the sheet music and the video, even though I know how to read sheet music and I feel like I'm making a connection. I'm like, that's awesome. That's so cool. And I feel like teachers can incorporate that too. And I understand how that could be frustrating because they're so used to teaching one way. But flexibility is the name of the game. Really
For sure. Yeah, and learning by rote has really, really gotten a lot more attention and popularity in the last year or so, I think.
I think so. I think the success rate is much higher, especially in this day and age where all we do is bombarded with visuals and audio. But learning by doing is oddly, maybe ironically enough, refreshing.
Yeah. And what's your biggest piece of advice for someone looking to learn by rote?
Oh, that's a very good question. If I may be so shameless, is to join the Smart Game Piano community, the Smartest Art Army here. We have a Facebook group where I encourage people to post videos of themselves performing a lot because they're learning themselves, they're teaching themselves, they're doing themselves. They can share that with other people. And I don't mean like a performance video, like here's my performance of Song of Storms from Legend of Zelda. No, they're allowed to play and talk about what they're doing. Because rote is kind of a by yourself thing, but that doesn't mean you can't communicate with others and talk to others about how it should be done afterwards. So that's what I would say. Learning by rote is great. Also make sure you're talking to people because there's a huge, huge, huge community about people who love video game music. It's gigantic. It's way bigger than people realize.
Yeah, and when you get people's feedback, when you're not afraid to put yourself out there, you really get to test your skills.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there's no better way to do that than by, performing. And it totally counts as a performance, I think. Follow.
And if you're separated across a screen, how do you critique things like posture or more of the intricacies that we have to take care of as teachers?
That's a really good question. So I understand that's really difficult when you're not side by side. I teach through Smart Game Piano by doing the songs first, worrying about the songs, not worrying about the finger technique, because this is going to sound so bad. So many people are just not interested in their posture and something like that. That is something we stress, for example, in our Facebook group, when people are really getting motivated and really getting going. Because if you start a 6-year-old down for the very first lesson and tell them, fix your posture, they're not going to stick with it. So for something like that, we wait until they learn a couple songs, be like, okay, I know we're learning a couple songs, but now we got to talk about posture using videos and something like that. And hopefully the feedback of something like our Facebook group will keep them motivated. Like, okay, I'm having fun. I'm learning these songs, and people genuinely carry, like not just me, the other members of the Smart Game community, the smartest, I like to call them, can comment on that. So basically, sharing videos online is the way we do it. And it's not something we tackle right away. And I know a lot of like maybe classical teachers like clutching the pearls right now, but that's not the number one priority right now, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I guess in Rote, you really want to get the students started in a couple basic songs or pieces of music, and they, have that intrinsic motivation to keep going, and then you're like, oh, here's how you prevent all this pain and injury down the road.
Exactly. Because people don't start, for example, working out right away by like, you got to do everything absolutely perfect right away. Like, no, you're like, okay, here's this posture. You messed up a little bit. That's fine. We'll ease into it.
Right.
Same thing here.
Yeah. And okay, so a fun question for you. If you had to play one video game forever for the rest of your life, which one would it be?
One video game for the rest of the time? Probably Pokemon. Because Pokemon, you can play the story, you can just go through and just like goof off, and plus the music is incredible. Oh man, it was either gonna be that or a Legend of Zelda game too.
Yeah,
that's really fun too.
Those have really cool graphics, like really cute graphics.
They do, and the music is amazing. Like I sound like such a broken record and such a nerd here, but the music is so good. Like, in fact, like Zelda is like the series that I have the most lessons on, because people request Zelda songs all the time, and we have so many available on Smart Game Piano. So because they're so good, they're just so good.
They're just classics.
They absolutely are. It's gonna be classical music someday.
Oh, for sure. When we're all dead, like this is gonna be the next, I guess, era of classical music.
It will be. I'm very excited for that.
Okay, so you teach a lot of music. What direction do you see the online music community moving towards, or what do you want the learning community to move towards?
I would like to see more people get into niches, ironically, because the internet is so big. There are so many possibilities, so many, like, I know I'm tempted to like, oh, I want to teach this, I want to teach this, I want to teach this, I want to teach this. But it's better for me to stick to video game music. And so I want to find a guitarist that's really good at doing blues. I want to find a taiko drummer that's really good at like Japanese taiko drumming. And that I'd like to see those really specific niches come together and collaborate together. Kind of like how you and I collaborated. Because it's really good to see people who are really, really cool, really good at one thing, and working with someone who's also good at really, really one thing, and seeing what comes out of it. Because it's really ironic. The more focused you are on one thing, the more diverse the future will be. At least I think for creators.
Yeah. And you and I did a video game and classical music mashup. So that's pretty diverse, I would say.
Yeah. I had someone comment saying, oh, I want to learn that. And I'm like, we didn't write it down.
No, we didn't write it down. But just play these two pieces of music. And
yeah, like you can do it.
Yeah. Wow. That's very cool. Okay, so Sydney, where can people find more of what you do?
I upload all first parts of tutorials and some performance videos on YouTube, username Smart Game Piano, and I'm on Instagram, and that's where I tend to goof off and try to motivate my students to keep practicing every day, also called Smart Game Piano. There is a Discord server, basically where people can sit and chat and talk about the anime music and video game music that they love. We have obviously our Facebook group where I've really talked up a bunch, where if you are really serious, serious. We're having fun, but we're serious about learning piano. That's the place to be. And of course, there is smartgamepiano.com. That's where all the tutorials are. And I've got some extra courses that are kind of like extracurricular if we're for beginners. So please creep on me. I appreciate it.
Guys, go visit Sydney in all those places, especially if you want to know more about video game music, if you want to know more about learning by rote. And, she does it using the following notes into the keys. So it's a really easy way to understand and get started. Anything else to add, Sydney?
I'm trying to think. So basically, I guess I want to say one more thing about piano. We learn piano to really better ourselves, and it's really here to make ourselves mentally stronger. And again, as I said before, technology is moving so fast, and it's probably going to pass us by within our lifetimes. So I would encourage everybody, almost demand everybody, to give themselves the gift of music, and just even if it's not piano, do something musical, do something creative to take care of yourself. Because I think people who don't have a creative outlet are really just hurting themselves in the long run, and I really encourage you to do that.
This is so important. Like, even if you just set aside, say, 15 minutes every other day, or half an hour a week just for yourself to explore your creative outlets, and a lot of stress or depression could be decreased from that, or a lot of you could get away from everything else that's happening in your life or the world.
Yeah.
So it's
or at least it's a way to cope. Like I tell my students, it's not going to solve your problems, but it's going to make them more manageable. Right.
It's going to help you, I guess, put you into a mind frame where you can manage them. And it's really important. And today, like, mental health is getting so much attention. And I myself consider myself to be an advocate for mental health challenges. And so it's really an important thing that people face. And music could be one of the outlets or
yes.
ways to cope with. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much, Sydney, for coming on today. This was a lot of fun, and so everyone go check out Sydney, and well, we'll see you soon then.
Yeah.
Okay, bye. If you're new here, my name is Grace, and I share creative piano advice to help you learn faster, practice smarter, save time, save frustration. If you want all my best stuff, I have an email list that's free. Every week I send email tips to your inbox. If you want to get that, the link is down below. I'll see you soon. Bye!